The Nightly Business Report.
Good evening. Tonight, Sri Lanka's services sector sees significant growth in July 2025, signaling continued economic recovery. Sri Lanka's deposit rates climb in August 2025 as overnight market activity intensifies amid liquidity adjustments. Sri Lankan stock market advances as investor confidence grows on signs of economic stability. And Google fined $36 million for breaching competition laws, marking significant regulatory action.
From Studio 24C, here's Prashansa Gunawardena.
Good evening and welcome to the Nightly Business Report. Sri Lanka's services sector expanded significantly in July, driven by growth in wholesale and retail trade, finance and transportation, according to the central bank's Purchasing Managers Index.
Sri Lanka's services sector experienced accelerated growth in July, with the Purchases Managers Index Services Index rising to 70.1 from 61.9 in June. The expansion was driven by wholesale and retail trade, financial services, and transportation of goods. Other sectors such as telecommunications, accommodation, food and beverage, and the health also showed positive developments. New business activity increased, particularly in trade and finance, while employment rose as companies hired more staff to meet demand. The central bank noted an improved business outlook for the next 3 months, supported by favorable macroeconomic conditions.
We Connect International, in partnership with the US Department of State, hosted the Sri Lanka Sustainable Trade and Economic Summit 2025 in Colombo, bringing together over 200 stakeholders including women entrepreneurs, corporate leaders and government officials. The summit focused on empowering women-led businesses and expanding Sri Lanka's participation in global trade through policy dialogues, business matchmaking and success stories. We Connect CEO Elizabeth Vasquez highlighted the importance of equitable access to opportunities for women entrepreneurs to scale and create jobs. The summit showcased Sri Lankan innovation and reinforced strategic partnerships to boost enterprise growth and regional economic resilience. Sri Lanka's deposit and overnight money market rates have risen in June following a controversial rate cut in May, amid a shift from an excess liquidity to a scarce reserve regime.
Sri Lanka's deposit rates and overnight money market rates increased in June after a controversial rate cut in May, reflecting a shift to a scarce reserve regime. Call money rates between banks have also risen with increased volumes as banks borrow from each other rather than relying on central bank liquidity. The weighted average new lending rate rose after initially falling, driven by expanding credit demand amid economic recovery. The central bank's reduced liquidity supported contrasts with earlier excessive money printing, which led to declining forex reserves. Narrowing lending margins indicate greater bank efficiency but may discourage banks from investing in lower yield government securities.
Sri Lanka's manufacturing sector grew at a stronger pace in July 2025, with the Purchasing Managers Index rising to 62.2, the central bank reported. All sub-indices showed positive contributions to this growth. The increase in new orders and production was driven by strong performances in the food and beverages and textiles and apparel sectors. Employment in manufacturing also returned to positive territory during the month. The stock of purchases continued to rise, although suppliers' delivery times remain extended. Despite optimism for the next 3 months, manufacturers remain cautious due to uncertainties in global trade. Let's take a short break now. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Sri Lanka's stock market closed higher, reflecting improved overall market sentiment. Both major indices posted gains supported by activity across multiple sectors. For further insights, we have Salama Sanoon from First Capital Holdings.
Thank you, Prashansa. The Colombo Stock Exchange experienced a day of increased investor activity and positive sentiment, with the all-share price index maintaining steady strides and closing at 20,471. This marks a gain of 252 points. The index experienced steadfast gains and withheld its positive trajectory throughout. The top positive contributors for the day were Commercial Bank, Carson Cumberbatch, Melster Corp, John Keells Holdings and DFCC Bank. Today's rally was predominantly driven by retail investors with significant participation from H&W investors following the release of quarterly earnings that reflected solid gains. Turnover for the day amounted to 7.7 billion rupees, marking a 21% increase from the monthly average of around 6.4 billion rupees. The banking sector dominated turnover, contributing 28%, followed by the diversified financials and capital goods sectors with a combined contribution of 34%. The top three gainers for the day were Standard Capital PLC, Mahaveli Coconut Plantations PLC and Carson Cumberbatch PLC, whereas the top three price losers were SMB Finance Voting, Bogala Graphite and Eastern Merchants PLC. Thank you.
Sri Lanka's stock market showed mixed performance last week, reflecting cautious investor sentiment amid global and local economic developments. Turnover remained moderate with fluctuations driven by key sectors such as banking, energy and manufacturing. For further insights, we have Ranjan Ranatunga from First Capital Holdings.
Thanks, Prashansa. The Colombo's opened the week on a strong note with both ASPI and S&P SL 20 indices refreshing their all-time high levels to close the day at 20,476 points and 5,998 points. The bullish sentiment in the market was supported mainly by banks, which saw very good results for the last reported quarter. The turnover continues to remain high, as well as with participation observed from both retail and high net worth investors. Looking ahead, we expect the present bullish market sentiment to continue, supported mainly by two things. One is the prolonged interest rates, which we believe shift investors between fixed income to equity investments, while on the other side, the positive growth in listed corporate earnings will be driving the sentiment forward. Amongst the growth in listed corporate earnings, we believe banks, diversified sector financials, and consumer, also construction, will be the outperforming shares compared to the other listed corporates in the Colombo Bourse. Thank you.
Gold prices rose in Asian trade today, recovering from an over 2-week low as safe havens remained in vogue amid dialogue over the Russian-Ukraine war. Uncertainty before the Jackson Hole Central Bank Symposium this week also favored gold and weighed on the dollar as markets maintained bets that the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates in September. Spot gold rose 0.7% to $3,357.73 an ounce, while gold futures for October rose 0.6% to $3,402.92 an ounce. Other precious metals also saw some bids today. Platinum futures rose slightly to $1,345.45 an ounce, while silver futures rose 0.5% to $38.180 an ounce. Among industrial metals, benchmark copper futures on the London Metal Exchange rose 0.1% to $9,799.75 a ton, while COMEX copper futures fell 0.1% to $4.489 a pound. Oil prices held steady in Asian trading today after weekly losses as concerns over Russian supply receded following last week's meeting between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Brent oil futures expiring in October was largely unchanged at 0.1% to $65.84 per barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude futures edged 0.1% higher to $62.87 per barrel. Additionally, Trump said on Friday he was in no rush to impose tariffs on countries such as China for buying Russian oil, but warned he could act within weeks if no progress is made on ending the Ukraine war. China and India remain the top buyers of Russian crude. Trump has imposed an additional 25% duty on Indian goods effective from the 27th August, citing its purchase of Russian oil. The Sri Lankan rupee has appreciated slightly against the US dollar at commercial banks in Sri Lanka today, compared to last Friday. However, compared to other regional currencies like the Indian rupee and Pakistani rupee, its performance remained relatively stable with minor fluctuations amid regional market dynamics. Let's take a closer look on how the Sri Lankan rupee has performed among other major global currencies. A short break now. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. People's Insurance plc reported a strong 33% revenue growth for the first half of 2025, driven by robust performance across all major business segments. The company also maintained a solid market position with a profit before tax of 321 million rupees and continued focus on customer-centric innovation and risk management.
People's Insurance plc reported a 33% revenue growth in the first half of 2025, with gross written premium reaching 3,752 million rupees. The motor insurance segment led the growth, contributing 77% of total revenue and increasing by 40%. The fire insurance segment also saw strong performance with 19% growth year-on-year. Profit before tax stood at 321 million rupees, maintaining the company's position as one of Sri Lanka's most profitable general insurers. People's Insurance continued its commitment to policyholders by settling claims worth 1,373 million rupees during the period.
Huawei officially launched the 10th edition of its flagship CSR program, Seeds for the Future, at its Sri Lanka office, marking a decade of nurturing ICT talent in the country. The event was graced by Chinese Ambassador and Deputy Minister of Education and Higher Education, Dr. Madhura Senaviratne, along with key government officials, academics and students. This year, 6 Sri Lankan students have been selected for a 9-day study tour in China, focusing on advanced technology such as 5G, AI, digital power and cloud computing. This program also includes leadership training and cultural exchange to enhance global exposure. Huawei Sri Lanka CEO emphasized the program's role in supporting Sri Lanka's digital economy and fostering innovation. National Development Bank plc reported a record profit after tax of 4.2 billion rupees for the first half of 2025, driven by strong growth in net fee income and sustained net interest margins.
National Development Bank plc reported a profit after tax of 4.2 billion rupees for the first half of 2025, with total operating income reaching to 22.3 billion rupees. Despite a decline in interest rates, the bank maintained strong net interest margins around 4.0%, supported by special loans and deposit arrangements. Net fee and commission income grew by 8.4%, with a notable 20.8% increase in the second quarter, reflecting efforts to boost non-funded income sources. A major achievement was a loan book crossing 100 billion rupees, with SMEs accounting for nearly 20% of total loans. NDB was also recognized as Euromoney's best digital bank for SMEs in 2025, highlighting its commitment to supporting this vital sector.
CW Mackey plc has launched a new range of cassava chips under its popular Scan brand, expanding its locally produced snacks portfolio. The new cassava chips come in 4 flavors: hot and spicy, salted, cheese and onion and kochi, and are now available at supermarkets and general trade outlets across Sri Lanka. This move builds on the success of Scan Jumbo Peanuts, which currently hold over 70% market share in their category. The company's factory factory in Horana supports local peanut and cassava cultivation, promoting sustainable agriculture and strengthening the local economy. Equipped with advanced testing labs and expert staff, SCAN ensures high-quality production that meets local and international standards. Siyapada Finance PLC has opened its 55th branch in Ambalangota, expanding its reach to provide accessible and customer-focused financial services. The new branch aims to support the diverse local economy with tailored products and community initiatives promoting sustainability and education.
Siyapada Finance PLC has opened its 55th branch in Ambalangota, enhancing financial accessibility in the region. The branch offers a wide range of products including leasing, fixed deposits, gold financing, personal and business loans, as well as convenient services like fast draft and smart pay. The opening ceremony was attended by senior company executives and local government officials. Ambalangota's economy, driven by the service, agriculture and industrial sectors, presents strong growth opportunities for tailored financial solutions. The company aims to support both individuals and businesses while promoting environmental and educational development in the community.
Let's take a short commercial break. Global business updates coming on the other side. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Most Asian stock rose today as risk appetite was supported by some signs of progress in US-Russia dialogue over Ukraine's ceasefire, with Japanese shares at record highs. Japan's Nikkei 225 and Topix indexes remained key outperformers in Asia, rising 0.8% and 0.5% respectively, while also hitting record highs. China's Shanghai Shenzhen CSI 300 and Shanghai Composite indexes rallied 1.5% and 1.2% respectively. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index lagged, rising 0.6% as losses in property and technology stocks lagged. South Korea's Kospi slid 1.3% after a long weekend. Australia's ASX 200 was flat, stalling below record highs hit last week on some losses in heavyweight mining and energy stocks. India's Nifty 50 index surged 1.5% in morning trade, hitting a 3-week high. Google agreed to pay a $35.8 million fine in Australia after the consumer watchdog found it hurt competition by paying the country's two biggest telecos to pre-install its search app on Android phones and excluding rivals.
Google has agreed to pay a fine over what Australia says were anti-competitive deals on search. The settlement Monday focused on its agreements with telecoms operators Telstra and Optus, a unit of Singapore Telecommunications. Australian competition watchdogs say the tech giant reached understandings with the pair that they would only install its search engine on phones they sold. It says the telecom companies got a share of Google's ad revenues in return. Regulators say the Alphabet unit has cooperated with the probe, admitted liability, and agreed to pay a penalty of close to $36 million. It has reportedly agreed to remove some search engine installations and will lift restrictions on the default search option set in contracts with Android phone makers and networks. Australian officials said the deal would offer greater choice over search for consumers in the country. Google said it was pleased to resolve the concerns and was committed to offering phone makers more flexibility.
Air Canada flight attendants said they will remain on strike and spurn a government return to work order, calling it unconstitutional.
Air Canada flight attendants returned to the picket line on Sunday, defying a government-backed Labour Board's order to return to work. The Canadian Union of Public Employees said in a statement that members would remain on strike and invited Air Canada back to the bargaining table. Other unions joined the flight attendants' picket line in solidarity at Toronto Pearson International Airport on Sunday. The airline said it would delay plans to restart operations from Sunday until Monday evening. On Saturday, the Canadian government moved to end a strike at the country's largest carrier by asking the Canada Industrial Relations Board to order binding arbitration. The CIRB issued the order which Air Canada had sought and unionized flight attendants opposed. The Canada Labour Code gives the government the power to ask the CIRB to impose binding arbitration in the interest of protecting the economy. The government's options to end the strike now include asking courts to enforce the order to return to work and seeking an expedited hearing, or trying to pass new legislation. More than 10,000 Air Canada flight attendants walked off the job on Saturday for the first time since 1985, after months of negotiations over a new contract. Air Canada had started cancelling flights on Thursday in anticipation of the stoppage. Travelers in Toronto said they were confused about whether their flights would resume or if Air Canada would make alternative arrangements. The most contentious issue has been the union's demand for compensation for time spent on the ground between flights and when helping passengers board. Attendants are largely paid only when their plane is moving.
That wraps up today's Nightly Business Report. We value your opinion. Share your thoughts and feedback with us through email at feedback.ad24english@then.lk or via WhatsApp at 076-805-7933. We will see you again tomorrow with the latest updates in the business globe. Vinod Varnasurya will join you next with other Derana Sports Central. Until then, I'm Prashansa Gunawardana. Thank you for watching and have a good night.